would be the capture of the treasury. That makes sense. If you want to rob a bank, you must capture the vault, the till. So to that extent, do you accept that treasury was at the nucleus of the project?
Well, I wouldn't say nucleus, but it was the very key component.
Yes, I'm happy with that.
To facilitate certain things happening.
Yes.
I mean, that question has to be asked to those who actually designed the capture strategy, because I'm not one of them.
Yes.
And they would know best what their strategy was, why they started with state-owned entities, and in today's terms, why some political parties start at a municipal level, for example. But that's a question they should answer.
Yes, I'm sure you're referring to your political party. But I'm saying that when it comes to I'm happy with your description that treasury was a key component. Let's work with that. So the fact is that for more than 7 of the 9 years, you and Mr. Nene were entrusted with the treasury, with the key component of state capture by President Zuma, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, I haven't done the calculation, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, well, you can take my word. You were there from the entire 5 years, from 2014 and 2019, that whole term, the President Zuma put you in charge of the treasury, the key component of state capture, correct?
Well,
yes, and then after that,
was it not dismissed in 2017?
No, that was the...
You said 2014 to 2019.
No, I beg your pardon, it's 2009 to 2014, Chair.
Yes, 2009 to 2014.
Yes, yeah.
Your President Zuma put you in charge of the treasury, correct?
Yes.
The full term. That would be, I think, the 4th parliament.
The question is whether you confirm that from 2009 to 2014, a full term of 5 years, President Zuma had appointed you as Minister of Finance. You accept that, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, in the second term, you served another, let's say, 1.5 years when you were reappointed by President Zuma again to the treasury, which we've defined as the key component of state capture, correct?
Yes.
And between
hang
that...
on 1 second, Mr.
I'm sorry, Chair.
I think you said as the key component.
A key.
I think it should be a key in terms of what he had said.
Oh, yes, no, fair enough, Chair. Yes,
yeah.
not
okay.
yes, a key. And between that reappointment of yours, the person who held the position in that key component was Minister Nene, one of the angels, correct?
Minister Nene will have been appointed after the 2014 elections.
I'm sorry, 2014 elections.
Can I finish, please? Can I finish?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, no, I made a mistake. I'm just correcting myself. Sorry, Mr. Gordhan.
So Minister Nene was the chair after the 2014 elections until the 9th of December, if I recall, 2015, when he was summarily dismissed from that position. And then that was followed by Mr. van Rooyen, which is referred to as the weekend special. And because of the reactions of the market and various concerned people and institutions, I was approached, as my statement says to you, in November 2018, on the evening of the 13th of December 2015, to take up that position again. And when I was requested that, just to remind everyone, I said, why not Mr. Moleketi or Mr. Jonas? I didn't accept the position immediately, just for the record. Thank you.
No, that's true. And Mr. Zuma said, no, those people are not acceptable to me. I want you. Correct?
Correct.
Yes. Now, my question is, does it make sense to you if President Zuma is supposed to be this kingpin of state capture and he changes cabinet in order to enable it, for him to appoint you for 7 of the so-called 9 wasted years, you and Mr. Nene, to be in charge of the of a key component of state capture, such as treasury. Do you think that would make sense to any neutral person observing? That it's like saying somebody who wants to rob a bank puts the person at the vault who is most likely to stop the robbery, if you get my metaphor. Does it make sense?
Well, it depends, Chairperson. Have you concluded, Mr. Mpofu?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairperson, it depends again on what phenomenon one is looking at. So let's take the evidence that you've had before the Commission, which I'm not familiar with in absolute detail. I did some of it, and I think the Director General of the Treasury, maybe 2 Directors General have done more in that regard. Mr. Nene would have done some in that regard as well, in relation to the so-called nuclear deal. So that didn't originate in the Treasury. It wasn't processed in the Treasury. The first set of figures weren't produced in the Treasury. In fact, the Treasury, as I recall it, was excluded from that process. And I think you've had details before you in that particular regard. And various people put up various forms of resistance. And some, like Mr. Nene, paid the price for it. That deal, as we stand today, did not materialize. So that's one example where you would have different agencies or different government departments engaging in particular activities that are not directly related to the Treasury. They will come to the Treasury when there are fiscal implications or financial implications, or authority in terms of Section 54 of the Public Finance Management Act is actually required. And then the Treasury, as in the case of Denel Asia, would have a sight of what a particular department is doing and will be then able to respond in that particular regard. So being a finance minister didn't mean that the finance minister had total control over everything that happened in government. I suppose if we did have that kind of capacity, which we didn't, and in law we didn't either, many more so-called deals could have been stopped or interrupted in the process as well. But this is all in relation to the Treasury. I'm not sure where Mr. Moyane puts it.
Well, the question is whether you think it made sense for Mr. Zuma to appoint you and Mr. Nene during your respective terms as Ministers of Finance during a time when when acts of state capture were happening. I think that's the essence of the question.
Yeah, let me add then, Chair.
So in other words, if I can...
It does make sense.
Yeah, okay,
It does make
continue.
sense.
Yeah, continue, yeah.
It makes sense because the finance minister and the Treasury, and together with the Reserve Bank, which has also been a target over a period of time, are key institutions that foreign ratings agencies, foreign lenders, local lenders, and others who are interested in evaluating whether we have a stable investment climate in South Africa would be watching in order to make decisions that would be positive as far as South Africa is concerned.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely plausible to have people who would be, inverted commas, respected in the marketplace. And Mr. Van Rooyen's position, for example, is a classic example of the opposite in this particular regard. And for government to be able to borrow, and in the early years of 2009-10, when we had a very low deficit and a very low debt to GDP level, it helped us to borrow because of the percentages or the ratios at that time. But increasingly, because of the financial crisis, the country had to borrow in order to sustain its level of expenditure. And 10% of that borrowing maximum happened in foreign currency, and the rest was borrowed in local currency within South Africa's capital markets. So it makes absolute sense to have people who would give credibility to the project whilst, and this refers to my earlier answer, around the Treasury. All sorts of things could be happening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, well, let me just say this. The two of you have been doing quite well about not talking over each other. Let's keep it that way. I think we are making progress.
Thank you, Chair, but I hope that is not condoning these long, unnecessary answers, because really, that's not the question I asked, but that's fine. The consequence will be that it's going to take longer. So I'm no longer going to try and curtail the answers. So, okay, now you accept that you said the 4-day appointment of Mr. Van Rooyen was an attempt, again, to capture the Treasury, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Now, when that didn't work, out of all the 57 million citizens in South Africa, you were the second choice to go to Treasury. And even when you said, no, why don't you take Mr. Jonas and this one, President Zuma said, no, I want you. Is that a true reflection of what happened?
He requested me to take that position.
Yes. Thank you. Now, the only point I was making is, and again, this is just for comment, is that I think to a neutral South African, you would expect then President Zuma